So we've been talking a lot about resilience with Dr. Scott and Reverend Yu, and this is such a rich conversation. For the youth workers who are watching this video, this segment, what can they take away to help in their individual contexts in terms of building resilience in their communities? What can they do practically to make this happen?
Well, I'd like to begin by saying that it was such a joy to present with the Yale Divinity the Institute, and to talk about examples of how we have built and worked with others to build resilience with diverse communities. The example that I'm going to share really speaks to the idea of not only building individual resilience, but also that idea of self to church to community. And it has to do with a program that has been around since the 70s in every state of the United States. And in certain communities, it is tapped into to a much greater degree than others. That program is called Community Emergency Response Team Training. And that training allows people to learn about how to respond together in times of crisis. There are very practical steps that are taken to teach people how to put out fires, how to stop the bleeding, how to clear airways, any type of thing that would help a person survive. We applied this training in a community that very interestingly was dealing with the issue of gang violence at the time we came upon them. It was the Watts community of South Los Angeles. And in a meeting when they were talking about, as a matter of fact, the conversation had gotten pretty heated about what was happening between the gangs. I was sitting there with my colleague and we thought, let's give a little announcement about community emergency response, because it can help not only to draw the community together, but it can help the young people to understand that they can be empowered to draw from what they know and from what they have within them to help their community and others survive. So this was a 6 to 10 week training program. It involved self-assessment, it involved a public health assessment, and it involved 6 weeks of training through this community emergency response program, bringing in the fire department, bringing in the police department, bringing in public health nursing, bringing in community leaders with our young people. And the reason I brought this as an example of building resilience is because young people in communities that are traumatized on a regular basis, whether it's historical trauma or whether it's something that happens over and over and over, like gang violence, they tend to build naturally a resilience, a well of resilience is built within them. But oftentimes, because of the stigma and because of the ideas that are thought about that community, that well of resilience is never really tapped. And so by us bringing this model that allows them to tap into their own resilience and match that with some very specific skills, it not only brought a sense of self-resilience, but it also brought a sense that we as a community can come out of this gang violence situation in a way that many more of the people can survive. And they began to draw young people who had been in the gangs, who had then become CERT trained themselves, and even adults, young adults who had been in the gang. And the city actually established a program, they called it the GRID, Gang Resistance something or other, but the GRID teams were actually trained in CERT to go into other gang infested communities and bring this model of resilience. And it really, I mean, it did something. One of the young people, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, one of the young people, when he graduated from the CERT program, he was sort of our valedictorian of the CERT program. And he said to the community, he said, I've been in situations where I've seen drive-bys, I've seen people shot, I've seen people killed in my community. He said, but now I can do something about it. And tears began to come down his face, which showed us that there had been not only a breakthrough for the community, but in the soul and spirit of this young man, He had a purpose now. He had a connection to his community. He saw a way forward in a community where a future may not have been as certain before. So I encourage people to look up CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, in your area. It'd probably either be with the fire department, with the police department, or if you're in a rural community, the sheriff's department is probably running it.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. I really wanna. This is for the youth ministry, especially ministers, right? I really appreciate Dr. Scott talk about that young people, they're kind of a deep down the resiliency. Yeah. So I really don't want people think kind of because of what I said, like oh yeah, the people of color have the less resiliency, or those kind of things. I'm actually speaking to the stigmatization established by outsiders.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm working with the community where most of them are African Americans and Hispanic population. But if you go there, all leaders are not the same people. And most of honestly, that the teachers and all the leaders are from a Caucasian, the background, the white, and so we carry that kind of stigma. You know what I'm saying? Just I'm here to teach you, to correct you, to fix you, to rescue. No, actually. So that's kind of the important thing is that we need to give them the pride. I want to say this: resurrect and revive the pride and heritage which has been robbed and stolen by all the oppression, aggression, and historical trauma. So that's our job. Is not about teaching something, but instead, I hope we can learn from them. Dr. West visited the ASU maybe 20 years ago, and I learned. And still, I remember in the Gamage Auditorium when he said, African Americans, we don't have our own language, which is a kind of a deficit. Well, she said, I thought about it quite a long time. And what is my language? Our language is a music. So music at the time, hip hop slowly kind of, rising up. And then people think that's not a music. But, that's our language, and I was very impressed by that because, yeah, there's a certain function that really bring people together, like a function of language. That's the music. So Dr. Scott talking about the CERT, which actually I was a part of it. I was teaching young people, but also I talk about my life, and we brought the ASU students to those who are suffering from inner city, kind of a community where I'm serving right now. But you know what? The great thing is that maybe the college, or youth workers, we can teach about more academic area, Bible study, or kind of how to go to college, those stuff. But in terms of poetry, music, you know, we need to learn from them. So we really encourage them that you are the leader, you are the teacher today. So they teach the how to do the music because they're the top of the world. And so that's very important. So in a trauma informed, we say that it's not us and them. It's all in this, we are all together.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect, but everybody has gift. We need to increase and exaggerate and kind of just maximize each person's the historical heritage, family tradition, and own pride, and then trusting the potential. And so instead of focusing on the problem deficit, we need to focus on the what they have and which has been deep down with the history. They're in DNA. And so this is so I hope that we can really embrace diversity, which means that diverse gifts, and that those gifts needs to be appreciated. It's not just going to the top school, but really what you have is a big contribution to our community and society. And that's a very important as a youth workers, instead of try to, I'm high, you're low, I'm here to teach. But more egalitarian. I want to learn from you guys. I want to follow you guys. Actually, they have more creativity than us, honestly. So I want to learn from you. I want to follow you. I think that can be a very important model. We call this as a servant leadership, right? So it's not kind of a charismatic, dominant leadership, but I will hope we can do more of a servant leadership that can be very helpful for our youth to be more resilient for our future.
Mhm.